In tonight's news edition, His Majesty the King and the Saudi monarch discuss ties and developments in the Middle East. Yemen's foreign minister says special forces troops fighting in the Houthi militia in Aden are Yemenis who received training in Gulf Arab countries, not foreign troops. And the International Red Cross says the Syrian crisis has severely impacted host communities in Jordan. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King and Saudi monarch Salman bin Abdulaziz discussed developments in the region as well as relations between the two kingdoms. During a telephone conversation, King Abdullah also congratulated King Salman for appointing Prince Mohammed bin Nayef as Crown Prince, Deputy Prime Minister and Interior Minister, and Prince Mohammed bin Salman as Deputy Crown Prince and Second Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister. Yemen's Foreign Minister Riyad Yassin said special forces troops fighting the Houthi militia in Aden are Yemenis deployed there 2 weeks ago after training in Gulf Arab countries, not foreign troops. He was responding to reports that a Saudi-led Arab coalition had sent in ground troops after weeks of airstrikes against the Iran-allied Houthi rebels and army units loyal to former President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Jets from the Saudi-led coalition pounded Yemen's main airport runways in the capital, Sana'a. The airstrikes came just a day after coalition jets struck Sana'a's Al-Dulaymi military airbase, destroying the last remaining landing strip in the war-torn country. The Saudi-led coalition has been carrying out airstrikes in Yemen since late March against the Houthis and their allies. The Saudis seek to restore the government of President Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi's government, now in exile in Riyadh. Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubair said the alliance is considering calling truces in specific areas in Yemen to allow in humanitarian supplies. The International Committee of the Red Cross said the Syrian crisis had a negative impact not only on Syrian refugees but also on their host communities in Jordan. The International Committee of the Red Cross said in a statement that the influx of refugees has caused many problems and severely strained infrastructure and public services in Jordan, leading to higher demand for housing, food, energy, water, and sanitation services. It said millions in Syria are facing tough living conditions, while people in neighboring countries also face similar difficulties, and these are only going to get worse as Syria's war heads into its 5th year. The statement said the total registered Syrian refugees in Jordan now number 680,000, according to latest statistics, with 85% of them living in host communities. At least 12 Iraqi soldiers and parliamentary forces were killed by suicide car bombs targeting an outpost in western Anbar province. Other attacks in the capital, Baghdad, left at least 14 civilians dead. Security sources said the fighters were part of a campaign announced by the government last month to recapture parts of the Sunni heartland from militants of Daesh group. They were targeted in a train station in Garma on the road to the Daesh stronghold of Fallujah, 15 kilometers to the east. The militant group did not claim the attacks, but the tactics is one they often employ. In Baghdad, 2 car bombs went off near a restaurant and a gas station in the predominantly Shiite district of Qard al-Dakhil, killing 14 civilians and wounding more than 30. More than 50 protesters, most of them policemen, were injured as protests by Israeli Jews of Ethiopian descent spun out of control. Thousands of Ethiopian Israelis have protested in Tel Aviv against racism and police brutality. Sources said the rally was sparked after footage emerged of an Ethiopian Israeli in an army uniform being beaten by police. Here's more.
A community crying out, "It's not Israeli Arabs." Clashes between Ethiopian Israeli protesters and police over the weekend have drawn international attention to one of the most disadvantaged groups in Israel. On the streets of Tel Aviv, a shower of water cannons and stun grenades being fired as several thousand Ethiopian Israelis and supporters marched against police brutality and racism. The demonstrations were set off by the police beating off a uniformed Israeli soldier, captured on video that went viral around the world. However, experts say the issues between the Ethiopian Jewish community and the government are not new ones. Officials said at least 56 officers and more than a dozen protesters were injured, some of whom were taken to the hospital. The demonstrations overturned a police car, smashed shop windows and destroyed property, and threw bottles and rocks at officers in riot gear at Rabin Square in the heart of the city. Tel Aviv's deputy mayor called for calm and said the majority of protesters had wanted a peaceful outcome. In an effort to quell anger over racism and discrimination in the country, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met the soldier of Ethiopian descent who was beaten by police. The soldier said he felt sad because the demonstration deteriorated into violence, but he supported the demonstration. Many Ethiopian Jews came to Israel in two large waves of migration in the 1980s and early 1990s after the chief rabbinate of Israel recognized them as Jews in 1975. The arrivals continued until 2013, when Israel ended the program of so-called mass repatriations from Ethiopia. Today, Ethiopian Israelis make up a small, underprivileged portion of society. They are estimated to number around 135,000, roughly 2% of the overall population. The protesters in Tel Aviv revealed an open and raw wound at the heart of Israeli society. Luaib Al-Qar for the news at 10.
Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman announced he will quit his post. He told a press conference his far-right Israel Beitenu party will not be part of the next government. Speaking 3 days before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's deadline for forming a coalition, Lieberman described the coalition in the making of opportunism. The walkout raised the prospect that Netanyahu, whose right-wing Likud party won the March 17 election, may have to settle for a narrow alliance to secure a majority in the 120-seat parliament. Lieberman said his party had been offered 2 cabinet posts, but the new coalition does not reflect the position of the Zionist camp.
This is certainly a coalition that, to my regret, does not reflect the positions of the nationalist camp and is not to our liking, to put it mildly. Therefore, my decision is first of all to resign my position as Foreign Minister. At the end of this meeting, I will submit my resignation to the Prime Minister, to the Government Secretariat, and of course, a clear announcement that we won't join the coalition.
Here at home, the percentage of Jordanians who believe the kingdom is on the right track is down by 9%. A poll on Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour's second cabinet after 2 years in office showed 65% of the national sample agreed that the country is on the right track, compared to 74% last February and 51% in December last year. The poll conducted by the Center for Strategic Studies at the University of Jordan showed 32% believe the country is on the wrong path. Head of the polling unit at the center, Walid Al-Khatib, held a press conference to announce the latest findings. Around 60% of those who believe the country is not on the right track cited rising prices, high cost of living, and economic slowdown, while 13% attributed to corruption and nepotism. Deputizing for His Majesty the King, Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour led a celebration on the Civil Service Bureau's 60th anniversary. The Bureau's president, Khalaf Hmesat, said his agency is setting the foundation of a new phase in which a unified human resource information system project will be launched. He said the Civil Service Bureau seeks to raise the efficiency of human resource units in ministries and other public entities to further develop management. During the ceremony, he also announced a contest honoring the best human resources unit in government agencies. The Bureau's head thanked all those who contributed to achieving the public institution's goals. The ceremony was attended by Her Royal Highness Princess Sumaya bint al-Hassan, His Highness Prince Mir'ad bin Ra'ad, and a number of ministers and lawmakers. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour thanked Germany for its support of Jordan and said the Jordanian University is a fruit of cooperation between the two countries. He spoke as he welcomed German Minister of Education and Research, Johanna Wanka. Mansour said that since its establishment, Jordan had a deep interest in education that put it at the forefront of Arab countries in education and eradication of illiteracy. Wanka said the Jordanian University is an outcome of the close cooperation between the two countries, noting that a student exchange project and training programs for university students in German companies had contributed to honing their skills and raising them. The Prime Minister and the German Education Minister joined top officials and academics at a ceremony on the 10th anniversary of the Jordanian University. Mansour inaugurated the university's Human and Social Sciences new premises, where teaching began in 2005 within the bachelor's and master's programs. Jordanian University President Nadir Abu Abeid said that the university is a role model and a success story despite being fairly a new one among its peers in the kingdom. He said the Jordanian University had managed to change the Jordanian stereotype towards applied education in the kingdom. In other news, France and Qatar signed a $7 billion deal for the sale of 24 fighter jets to the Gulf Arab state. President Francois Hollande hailed the accord as a mark of Gulf Arab regard for French regional strategy, including its firm line on Iran. The contract is the third this year after similar deals to Egypt and India. It also includes missiles and the training of 36 Qatari pilots and 100 technicians by the French military. Officials said the accord signed by Hollande and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani also provided for the training of a number of Qatari intelligence officers. U.S. police and FBI officers searched the Arizona apartment of one of two gunmen shot dead after they allegedly opened fire outside a Texas exhibit of caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Citing a senior FBI official, ABC News identified one of the gunmen as Elton Simpson, an Arizona man who was the target of a terror investigation. It said FBI agents and a bomb squad were searching Simpson's Phoenix home. A local TV station reported an unidentified second man lived in the same complex as Simpson. It was not immediately clear whether the two men lived in the same apartment. The shooting in a Dallas suburb was an echo of past attacks or threats on other Western countries against art seen as offensive to Muslims. An Italian naval vessel brought some 800 migrants to the port of Calabria in southern Italy. Several children were carried off the vessel for medical attention, but most of the migrants were said to be in good health and will now be transferred to reception centers throughout Italy. Italian authorities say some 200,000 migrants are expected to arrive in the country this year, up from 30,000 last year. About 1,800 are estimated to have perished during the crossing already this year, while some 51,000 have entered Europe by sea, with over 30,000 coming via Italy. World number 4 Rafael Nadal said that Novak Djokovic's withdrawal means there is plenty of opportunity at the Madrid Open. Djokovic withdrew from the second consecutive year to rest before the Rome Masters and the French Open. Djokovic has been in perfect form this year, following up his triumph at the Australian Open with victories at the Masters events in Miami, Indian Wells and Monte Carlo.
Una puerta abierta donde no la ha habido en los torneos pasados por el gran récord que lleva que tiene Djokovic durante todo este año, y son muchos años ya, ¿no?
Yamaha's Jorge Lorenzo savored his first MotoGP victory of the season with a pole-to-flag victory in his home Spanish Grand Prix ahead of reigning world champion Marc Marquez. Marquez, riding with a fractured finger after a training accident, finished 5.5 seconds behind after holding off a challenge from Lorenzo's Italian teammate Valentino Rossi. Rossi made MotoGP history with his 20th podium finish. A man found with his foot caught in a basketball hoop in Seattle took the words slam dunk to a whole new level. The man was rescued by police after he was discovered hanging upside down from the net. A group of police surrounded him, but had to initially back off as he swung his body back and forth to try to free his foot. The man was holding a hammer in his hand, and eventually police were able to grab hold of him and use a ladder to reach the hoop to get his foot down. It is not known why the man ended up on the hoop. And finally, cool tonight with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, a slight rise in temperature is expected. Therefore, it will be warm in most regions and hot in the Jordan Valley and Badia. Winds will be northwesterly moderate to brisk. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a pleasant night and hot day tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King and the Saudi monarch discuss ties and developments in the Middle East. Yemen's foreign minister says special forces troops fighting the Houthi militia in Aden are Yemenis who received training in Gulf Arab countries and not foreign troops. And the International Red Cross says the Syrian crisis has severely impacted host communities in Jordan. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. Thank you for watching and have a good night.